It's the one place in Las Vegas where the spirits of Native Americans, past and present, walk with today's visitors. We believe a natural garden is an enlightened one. Bugs and bunnies are some of our featured performers. And there are many more stories at the Springs Preserve, where all that matters is what's elemental. In contrast to its urban location that's surrounded by such a diverse modern population, the preserve encompasses distances in time and acreage that, with some planning, can provide a day trip rich in experiences or memories associated with this ever-changing setting.
The great thing about the Springs Preserve is that we are on 180 acres, and about 30 of that is taken up with our buildings, our museums, and our galleries. So there's always something going on, and there's always so much to do.
The first and most popular stop, by design and choice, is often the Origin Museum.
And the way that the site is laid out, if you only have an hour or 90 minutes, a family can come in and go into the Origin Museum. And there are different attractions. We have museums and galleries that will rotate. We have 2 traveling exhibits, and they rotate an average of every 3 to 4 months. So there's always something new happening. Then we have our flash flood exhibit, which all children love. And it's our most popular exhibit, so it gives you the sense of having 5,000 gallons of water rushing at you if you were caught in a flash flood. We have live animal exhibits in the back, which everyone loves, but of course children go toward that.
Beyond Origin, the preserve expands into a variety of themes represented by our innovative Desert Living Center and respected botanical garden.
And then the southern half of our campus is all about sustainability and the future. So there are all sorts of architectural marvels really to look at throughout our Desert Living Center. And then 8 acres of just beautiful gardens. So you could come out and take a 30-minute walk in the garden, or you could just start from one end and spend an entire day going across and taking advantage of everything that we offer.
Including the whole world of the Wilder Preserve, which is accessible by foot, or some entertaining yet educational modes of transportation.
We have in the back, we have our interpretive trails, about 2.5 miles of historic walking trail, and there are bicycles which we rent, and families can get a seat for a toddler or smaller bikes for children and take the time to go out around the trail. We have a train as well, and that takes about 20 minutes. And there's a voiceover that lets you know what you're passing and gives you an idea of the historical importance of the site and of the railroad to our site.
There's a wealth of natural history lessons, too, in the renewed activity of birds and beasts in this backcountry of the preserve.
When they rebuilt the Ciénegas and brought the water back to the site, over 250 different species of animal returned to the site. Obviously, the majority of those are birds, but we do have a family of fox that live out there, and desert ground squirrel, and you can see them running around. We have some eagles and falcons who will come by, and you'll catch them perching. I know we are very popular for bird watching.
Then, when you're hungry for something to go along with all of the new knowledge, the Divine Cafe offers refreshing and satisfying meals in your own perch with its amazing vista of the preserve and valley.
The view is unparalleled in the entire city. It actually gives downtown and the Las Vegas Strip. It's a great way just to spend an afternoon and really look at the valley and see why so many of us call it home.
People watching is always another attraction, especially on the many special days at the preserve.
We have seasonal festivals, which usually go with the nicer weather, obviously. So in the fall, we have an Asian Heritage Festival that we've done. We have our Grapes and Hops event, which obviously is focused toward the adults. Haunted Harvest, which is all about the children the entire month of October. We have Day of the Dead at the beginning of November. And we start picking them up again toward the end of the winter. We have our Black History Month celebration, Ohana. There's all types of different events, and we try and keep it always lively and happening.
Which is perfectly in keeping with those important aspects of the preserve's mission to build culture and community, to inspire and celebrate daily.
And so it's a great gathering place. It was sort of our idea of Central Park, just a place for people to come out and be. So I think it really adds a lot to the community.
Why not renew, upgrade, or become a Springs Preserve member today and receive the discounts, privileges, and benefits you, your family, friends, or colleagues deserve? For more information, go to the membership page of our website at springspreserve.org. Over the years, the Springs Preserve has developed quite a reputation for creating kids camps with the newest and most popular learning experiences that make every summer even more fun.
One of the special things about 2016 is that we have a bonus week of summer break, so we have a full 12 weeks of camp. Because last year it was so popular having each week be a different theme, we decided to bring that back for this year. We took the most popular themes like dinosaurs and holidays and brought those back with a twist. So dinosaurs are now dinosaur carnivores and the holidays have all different holidays. And then we brought some new themes as well. So every single week of camp will be something that is fresh and different and fun. And there's so much to do at the Springs Preserve, you couldn't possibly do it in 1 week. So this way you get to see all the different elements of the Springs Preserve. You know, you'll see a different part of the museum, maybe go on a train ride one day, or maybe go behind the scenes at zoology another day. You get to be learning all kinds of stuff that you would have never thought about before. It really keeps it very fresh and educational and hands-on. Sometimes we have kids that come every single week, and then sometimes we have kids that come for just 1 week, or a combination of what themes are exciting for them. Either way, you're going to have a good time. Camp itself runs from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock, but we do offer an extended care, so kids can be dropped off as early as 6:30 and picked up as late as 6:30. Yeah, it really helps out working moms and dads. Camp starts June 6th and runs all the way through the very last week of August. Be sure and check online. When we start putting camps up, they sell out very quickly.
Discover a land that's more than just ice and snow at the Arctic Voices exhibit, now on display in the Origin Museum through May 18th. Take a journey to this polar region where visitors can mimic animal life, travel with scientists studying cold water whales, and adapt like the plants at the north end of the earth. For more information, visit springspreserve.org. From Bugs Bunny to Brer and Peter Rabbit, in popular culture, these animals can be cute and cuddly, but also quick-witted tricksters. All images drawn from the real lives of our own desert cottontails that reside and hide here at the Springs Preserve.
So desert cottontails are a really neat animal. So that's a native mammal that probably we're all really familiar with. Right? This is one we see quite a bit in our master plan communities here in southern Nevada. You might see them down in golf courses here in town. They're really attracted to just lush landscapes, and so they're going to eat all that vegetation that's in there. So and just with that abundance of resources, and we just have some really healthy populations of these animals here in town.
They love these Las Vegas luxuries, but they're also perfectly designed desert survivors. Little but hardy, plain and fancy, with the ability to keep cool and become nearly invisible.
They've got that small body, gets that name Cottontail because of that white tail that they have. So that's a feature that really stands out. One threat for them is just going to be predation. So whether it's fox or bobcat, that sort of thing. If we look at temperature, one thing, they've got those really long ears with lots of blood vessels, right? And they kind of act like little heat exchangers, right? So kind of helps them maintain the right body temperature and cool off. They also have that pallid, tannish color to them. That helps out as well. You'll notice a lot of desert animals tend to have kind of those muted color tones, and that really helps so they don't absorb too much heat from the sun, right? Now it also serves a really good thing of camouflage. So the cottontails are masters at this, so they're able to just blend in with their environment. And so if there is a potential predator in the area, the cottontails will just freeze, so they'll be completely motionless, and they really do blend in very well with the environment.
Although you can see them frequently but briefly throughout the valley, the best place by far to observe more of their clever behaviors is at the Living Collection habitat that's specifically but naturally designed for these tricky rabbits and our keenly interested visitors.
Even here at Springs Preserve on exhibit, sometimes it can be a little interesting to try and display such an animal, right? because they do blend in. What's really neat about the design of our exhibit here is all the different vantage points that guests can utilize to catch a glimpse, right? So we've got areas all along the front and sides of the exhibit. We also have pop-up domes, acrylic domes that visitors can pop their head inside to get some different sight lines inside the exhibit. So it's letting our guests get as close as possible to the animals and get in there and get some different vantage points.
With the coming of spring, butterflies are on the wing again now that we've reopened our unique natural habitat. Visit springspreserve.org for more information. It's our profession and our privilege to share all of our passion for the Mojave's wondrous creatures. And once you've experienced our new wildly interactive show, which runs on weekends and holidays through May, we know you'll join us in our love for bugs.
Since spring at the Springs Preserve oftentimes means a lot of insects in the air, we thought a show that talked about insects and bugs would be something that a lot of people would like to see. So we're doing a show on weekends from March, April, May that's going to be all about bugs, creepy crawlies, things that have 6 legs, 8 legs, even hundreds of legs. And the interesting facts and interactions that we have with those creepy crawlies. We have done bug shows in the past, but this one's going to be a little bit more interactive, both for those of us putting on the show and the very brave people sitting in these seats behind me. So there's going to be some more interaction with the guests of the Springs Preserve who are going to be able to get up close and real with some of our stars of the show, sometimes maybe too up close and real. We'll see. Some of the insects we have featured in the show are going to be giant centipedes, tarantulas, vinegaroons, even a hissing cockroach or two, some beetles, all the little things that you're unhappy to find in your house, but you're happy to see here at the Springs Preserve on stage. The show's going to run on weekends during March, April, and May. It's going to run anytime there's a holiday during that period, so anytime that you have a day off, come on down to the Springs Preserve and learn a little bit about their animals you share the Mojave Desert with, whether you want to or not. It'll be fun.
Coming in June to the Origin Museum, the traveling exhibit, Playing with Light, will ignite your imagination as you open your eyes to our big bright world and the many ways explorers and scientists go toward the light of lasers, telescopes, and the infrared spectrum. Visit springspreserve.org for more information. Whether you're nurturing the smallest plant or an intricate garden, the path to creating fertile soils, beautiful blooms, and nourishing produce begins and ends most successfully by doing what comes naturally.
There's quite an appeal for natural gardening, particularly in a desert environment, because we have limited resources such as water. If you choose native plants, for example, they're adapted to the soils and the water. It's going to be much easier to grow them if you stick with natives. You can really use natural gardening methods to apply to any type of plants that you're growing. So you're looking at what soils you have, how you're amending those soils, how we're irrigating, how we're harvesting, how we're looking at pest control and disease resistance and plant selection. All of those can apply to pretty much anything you'd like to grow.
The best investment is likely to be in the very earth from which everything grows.
There's lots of ways to amend soil. If we're using native plants again, the native soil is what they prefer, so nothing needs to be done to amend soil if you're planting just native plants. But a lot of things like edibles and maybe plants from other places are going to appreciate a little bit more nutrients that are available to those plants, and that can be done by amending the soil with an organic material like compost, leaf molds, soils that we purchase from nurseries or bagged products. But what we want to look at is what we're purchasing and what we're adding. So each plant has specific needs, and those really differ depending on what we're growing.
The trick to dealing with insects, good or bad, is first to do no harm, and then to do the least harm possible.
So one thing that we look at with natural gardening is IPM. It's integrated pest management, and it is the least harmful to people and environment method of attacking these pest problems. So we start with the least invasive methods. First of all, making sure we're identifying a pest as a pest and not that it's a beneficial insect. Sometimes the larval stages of something like a ladybug are mistaken for a problem and eradicated, and then the problem insects can multiply without their natural predators present. So we want to make sure before we deal with an insect pest that it truly is a pest.
And targeting specific insects with non-toxic pesticides is necessary for protecting our most precious birds, bees, and bugs.
Pollinators are an essential part to most every garden because we need them to actually produce the fruits that we eat. So we want to encourage them to our garden, and we can do that through having a natural garden without poisons and things that would be toxic to them. So when we're talking about pollinators, it's a whole host of things from bees, wasps, butterflies, birds. There's a lot of things that serve those purposes in our garden. So we can draw them to our gardens by making them natural, have some small water sources if it's birds, bees, butterflies, they all appreciate that.
By applying some of these basic principles of permanent agriculture and horticulture, you'll be getting the healthiest growth possible out of your naturally attractive garden. In our well-designed desert landscape, there's something wonderful to see every weekend. So why not join one of our free guided garden walks to learn more about what's in bloom, what's unusual, and what you can add to your own botanical collection. To find out more, visit springspreserve.org. The impressive historical reputation of the Springs Preserve is greatly enriched by the living memories, cultural traditions, and archaeological finds that reveal its importance as a promising land and often a chosen home for many generations of Native Americans.
Here at the Springs Preserve, we have sort of the full range of cultural groups that you would have seen going back in time all the way through to the modern period when you see the European American settlers come in, the Mormon settlers and the explorers pass through this area. So if you're looking for a place to see the wide swath of history of the Las Vegas Valley, this is your place.
Evidently, it's been the place for ages thanks to an abundance of water that once made the preserve flourish as a feeding and hunting ground.
We know that when we were measuring water in the earlier historic period, water coming out of the springs, that it was about 1.5 million gallons of water coming out of the ground a day in a 24-hour period. So that's a significant amount of water. And this area at the Springs Preserve we know would have been very wet, not necessarily swampy, but very lush. And that definitely would have attracted all types of animals and definitely would have attracted the people. The people follow the animals, the people find the water, and so you would have had animals and people interacting in this space pretty regularly.
Including some prehistoric animals that are now extinct and people who have come and gone yet continued to settle here.
Here at the Springs Preserve, we know that we have evidence of human activity here going back 3,000, 5,000 years. Probably not so late as 10,000 years, but it would be fantastic to find something associating human activity with these early fauna like mammoths or mastodons or camels or bison. As far as habitations on site, the earliest evidence we have for habitations on site come from the pit houses that we've discovered that are associated with formerly called Anasazi peoples, what we now call ancestral Puebloan peoples. When we talk about ancestral Puebloan people living in a place, we have evidence of their houses here. And so that discovery in itself allows us to redraw a map. It allows us to include Las Vegas in the wider southwestern cultural area, which is something very rare that happens. It's very rare that you actually get to redraw maps and include an area that hasn't been included before.
Although the Puebloans were dispersed by a massive drought and would eventually be followed at the preserve by the Patayan, Mojave, and Paiute tribes.
Well, according to Paiute tradition, they've always been here. This is their homeland. This is where they were created. This is where they were born. The archaeological evidence it tells a slightly different story. We see evidence for people coming out of the desert, the California desert, probably about 800 to 1,000 years ago. We see a change in technology associated with ceramics and pottery. We see changes in technology associated with things like projectile points. We start to see very small projectile points, as previously they were a little bit larger, a little bit wider. So finding the structures, the habitations, the places where people live, we know they were here for a significant period of time. They weren't just passing through the valley. This is where they were living. So that's very important.
And it makes them well worth recreating in our Native American village.
When you go outside here at the origin, we have a reconstruction of a Mojave pit house, which is slightly different than what you see in this area down along the Colorado River. These were large mud and log constructions with flat fronts on them. And we also have reconstructed Paiute houses called kani. Some people might call them wiki-ups, but the Paiute term is kani for the houses, the brush structures that they would have used here.
The other notable structure is the silo that contains grains and seeds for our traditional garden.
We've planted corn, we've had sunflower, we've planted wheat. We've also planted chilies, which is something that native groups would have known and probably would have grown all throughout the Southwest.
We're aware of their desert-wise ways because members of our local tribes have been involved in the creation of the preserve and join us frequently as guest curators to share their knowledge of this ancestral homeland.
This is a real chance for people to learn firsthand from the Native Americans that live here about their lives, about their traditional lifeways, their crafts, what they're doing still today. And so it's an important part of what we do here at the Springs Preserve also to bring people together. We're a very, very diverse community. We have people from all over the world, and to highlight the people that are here is something very important to help build community.
Chef Cicely is working some more of her kitchen magic as she conjures up a beautiful and flavorful Mexican dish that is the toast of tostadas.
Howdy folks, my name is Chef Cicely, joining you here from the Divine Cafe at the Springs Preserve in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Today we are going to be making tostadas. Now, most important part of the tostada is actually the tostada shell. So how can you get those amazing, beautiful productions of what is essentially a taco bowl at home? Well, that's what I'm going to show you here today. So what I have are 3 different types of tortillas. I have little baby corn tortillas, I have large flour tortillas, and then I also have medium-sized flour tortillas. Any one of these can get fried up to make either a taco shell or a tostada shell. So let's go over to the stove, and that's where we'll start. There's a variety of things to set up before starting to fry because it's a very fast process. So everything I want to make sure I've got lined up. I have a large round saute pan with very open edges to allow steam to come off as it cooks. And I'm going to place enough oil in the bottom so that it coats it evenly, and it actually is a little bit, maybe a quarter of an inch or so high. I'm going to pull that over the heat and let that heat to medium high, and then you'll see I've also got the ingredients I'm going to fry. I have some paper towels out, I have 2 bowls, a tong, and a baking sheet with a drying rack on it. So all of these things are going to come in handy when I am making my tostadas. These 2 bowls, I'm going to flip one of them over the smaller one on my drying pan, and I'm going to take 2 paper towels and just lay those over the top. We'll come back to that later. And I'm going to start with my big flour tortilla. And put it in, let it flop down so that it pops out that way. And you can see I've got sizzling going on right as I add it in. I'm going to use my tongs and spin it around so that I get oil on the top, and there's also oil on the bottom. You can see that the air pockets in that flour tortilla are poofing up. I'm just going to use my tongs to gently press those back down so that it continues to get nice even cooking through the whole process. I'm going to check on it, and I can see that as I check, I'm checking it and pulling it away from me, that I'm starting to get some nice browning on those areas where it's lifting up, where it's getting more contact with the bottom of the pan. So I'm just going to keep spinning it around until it gets nice and brown. And that's just about right. Flip that guy over. It's going to poof up on the other side. Now here comes the fun part. I've got a bowl here with 2 paper towels over the top, and I'm going to put one here with 2 in the basin of the bowl. Pull this guy out, tap some oil off, put it on top of the smaller bowl, take my larger bowl, press it down. I'm going to let that guy cool, and while it's cooling, I'm going to go ahead and just do one of these little guys. Same process, pop it in, spin it around. Now my next step, my final step, is going to be as I open the paper towel, I want to put my toppings on my tostada shells while they're still hot. So that's going to be a little bit of salt. Salt can also get added into the pan as it's cooking. Some paprika. And then also some cojita cheese. And the main reason I want to put the cheese on while it's still hot is so that it melts to it and sticks. Sprinkle that over. These guys are going to go in the oven to get held hot while I prepare all the rest of the ingredients for my tostadas. Or if I had a whole bunch to make, that way I can keep making them and each one is going to seem like it's fresh out of the fryer when I serve it. And I am ready now to build my tostada. So I have hot shells, I've got cheese and spices on one side, so I'm going to take that and flip it over. And while it's still warm again, I want to get the edges of my bowl and what will be my chips and servingware for this dish with the cheese. Let it melt so that it kind of sticks on there nicely. And then also, of course, touch of salt around the edges. And then from there on out, it's a buffet line as far as what I want to fill my tostada with. So I'm going to go with a little bit of greens. Of course, some black beans. Sauteed or roasted peppers is also a wonderful, nice touch. Next, I'm going to go over here to some tomatoes. Green onions for, of course, lots of that nice fiesta style flair. Let's see, next I want some guacamole. Nice big old chunk, can never have too much of that. And how about some chicken? Do this vegetarian or with ground beef. Any different style that you would like. Sour cream or creme fraiche, whatever is your guilty pleasure. Touch of salsa. And of course, some good old cheese right on the top there. So now, what was a salad now becomes something a bit more extravagant. What was a bowl now becomes my servingware to eat it. And I can also do this in a variety of sizes. So this could be my dinner or lunch. This could be snack time or first course. Or this could be a wonderful hors d'oeuvre at a party. So thank you for joining me today at the Divine Cafe at the Springs Preserve. I hope you enjoyed making tostada shells and that you soon enough make your own. And I also hope to see you here.
There's a lot more to discover, so join us next time here at the Springs Preserve, where all the elements of a history that is being made every day, the never-ending display of animal adaptations, and humanity's nature-friendly innovations mingle to bring new life to Las Vegas.